So the book is Intentional Money. It'll be out next month, and I will be sure to include a link for Candy to share once we have that available. But it really does go more in depth through the intentional money method, gives stories of what we've seen clients experience, gives stories from my own life of what I experienced, and really how powerful it is to look at all six pillars and really allow them to support your financial journey.
Welcome to She Coaches Coaches, the podcast where we have thoughtful, honest conversations about what it really takes to build a thriving coaching business. I'm your host, Candy Motzek, and before building my business, I spent years as a senior corporate leader. Now, today, I work with coaches who are smart, well trained, and deeply capable, and who want clarity about how to grow in a way that feels aligned and financially sustainable. On this show, I sit down with successful coaches to explore the real decisions behind their success, how they got started, what shifted as they grew, and the mindset and business choices that helped them gain momentum without burning out. Whether you're early in your coaching journey or refining a business you've already built, She Coaches Coaches is here to offer perspective, confidence, and grounded insight to support your next chapter. To learn more about how I work with people, go to my website, stepintosuccessnow.com. And now let's dive in. I have a special guest here for you today. Her name is Leah Hadley. She is the CEO of Intentional Wealth Partners, where she helps women gain clarity and confidence in their financial lives. She is also the founder of Intentional Divorce Solutions, where they provide specialized financial planning for women navigating divorce, and the Empowered Sisterhood, a membership community for women ready to transform their relationship with money. As the creator of the Intentional Money Method, Leah guides her clients to align with money decisions with their deepest values, moving beyond traditional budgeting to create wealth that truly supports the life they want to live. Now, before we dive into the conversation, I just wanted you to know that Leah and I met when I was facilitating some conversations on a small summit, and I enjoyed the conversation so much that I actually asked her to come and be a guest and speak to you. So, Leah, welcome back. Not the first conversation for us, but first conversation on this show.
Thank you so much for having me, Candy. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, tell me about how you got started. There's this real word about intentional wealth and all of that. Like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I did not get started intentionally at all. I actually tried a lot of different things when I was young, which I think is a good thing. I have a master's degree in education. I was a teacher for Baltimore City Public Schools. I taught for the community college and ultimately got burnt out in the classroom. I was drowning in student loan debt at the time, and I just needed a job. And I didn't have a background in finance. My undergraduate degree was in sociology. My master's degree was in education. I'd been teaching third grade. So when I was struggling and trying to figure out what was next, I took a temp job that happened to be at an investment bank. And here I was walking into this investment bank feeling like an educated individual. And I walk in and I feel like everybody around me is speaking another language, Candy. And that was a very eye-opening moment for me because here I was, I'd finished graduate school, I had a professional career, and there's this whole world of wealth creation that I literally had no knowledge of and didn't even understand the words that they were saying. So that took me on a very different journey. I actually kind of grew up in the equity research department, became a publishing equity research analyst, but ultimately, you know, a lot of what I share and talk about is making decisions that are in alignment with your values. And what was really important to me at that time in my life is my ex-husband at the time. He and I were starting a family, and we wanted to be able to have children. And that career required a lot of time, a lot of travel. That wasn't the kind of family life that I wanted for myself. And so I decided to become a financial advisor and working with individuals and families and taking all of that, very high. Um, in-depth knowledge of investing that I had and really support people in being able to create wealth. But I quickly found that within the traditional broker dealer world, there are so many limitations around how you can support people and help people. And they have kind of a way of doing business that has allowed them to be very successful, but it didn't fit with who I am and the way that I wanted to help people. And so ultimately, 10 years ago, this is our 10-year anniversary, I decided that I was going to go out on my own. And I actually started my divorce practice first. I think there's a huge need for people who are going through major life transitions to get good financial guidance and support. But then I quickly found that people would come to us for the support through their divorce and then want to stay, for ongoing financial planning and investment management. And then that practice kind of grew on its own. Somebody refers their brother or their child or their mother or whoever. And so we serve a wonderfully large, diverse group with intentional wealth partners now. And in working with all these people going through all these changes, I started to see a lot of misses where traditional financial advice really wasn't supporting people. And why is that, right? Because you meet these people. I'm thinking of a specific client who came in one time, very well established attorney, great career, wonderful reputation. And when she walks into my office, Candy, she literally has a bag of papers and is like uncomfortable. Like you could see visibly uncomfortable bringing this information to me and sitting down and having a conversation about money.
Wow.
And this is a person who has a lot of success in her life in a lot of different ways, and people think about success. And she was filled with
Mhm.
so much shame around the lack of knowledge around how to handle her money. And so those experiences with women like her, really led me to creating the intentional money method and really seeing how can we break down some of the barriers that I'm seeing in wealth creation, in order to really help women kind of level up in terms of financial literacy, but more importantly, be able to create the wealth that they want in their lives and leave the legacy that matters to them.
Yeah, and there's a lot in what you described there. The first thing that I really noticed is that you couldn't be the advisor now if you hadn't had all those other experiences, right? And so that's the place where we get that 2020 hindsight. You're thinking, "Ah, why am I doing this? Like how did I get here?" But then when you turn around and look at the past, you go, well, if I wasn't an educator and if I didn't make the choice that I wanted to have a different life and that I didn't realize my values didn't quite align with the traditional approach, you would never have made these steps. It's amazing to see how a career and how a business can progress over time.
Yeah, it really is. And I have to say, one of the things that we talk about with the intentional money method is mindset. And one of the things that I was very blessed with in my life was a family of people who are willing and able to reinvent themselves throughout their careers. And so I was never a person who felt like I'm a teacher, so all I can be is a teacher, right? And I know that that is a real challenge for a lot of people. But that's that mindset issue, right? Of looking at how do we open our eyes to what might be right in front of us, even though it might not be the most obvious path.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. Right?
Right.
So the question is how many women are in that same boat? They look all together on the outside, and then on the inside, they have this lack of knowledge, and then they've layered some judgments about themselves. Do you have any thoughts about that? Like, is that a really
Yeah.
common thing?
It is common, and what I find really fascinating, because I don't just work with women, I also work with couples, but a lot of times, even very successful women will delegate the long-term financial planning, responsibility, decision-making, relationship with the financial advisor to their spouse, and make the assumption that because they've delegated it to their spouse is actually doing a better job than they would do themselves.
Right.
And actually, if you look at the research, women are very successful investors. And the reason that women are such successful investors is because they are willing to take a strategy, implement it, and stick with the plan.
Mm,
Whereas, actually, like in terms of the gender research, we actually see men much more likely to trade in and out, which creates additional expense, typically reduces returns, things like that. So it really is fast. You're absolutely right. It's very, very common. And even within a relationship, like I said, I'm always surprised at how frequently the assumption, it's not just the delegation, it's fine. I think it's great to delegate responsibility,
Mhm.
between the couple, but the assumption being that your spouse is gonna do a better job. That's what really always surprises me.
Yeah. And that paired with what I've heard and seen quite regularly, women at middle age and beyond who may have worked their entire life, may have had careers. They may or may not be divorced. Maybe they're widowed. And their financial situation is very dire. And a lot of it is because they didn't know 40 years ago what to do and didn't it was never convenient, it was never the right time to learn those things, and then all of a sudden they're living with the repercussions of not not taking ownership of their finances and their knowledge about finance. That's a really sad situation.
It is. It is a really sad situation, and it's so avoidable.
Yeah. So from the standpoint of our conversation, because the focus is on coaches, lots of these people they've had careers or they continue to have a career and now they want a business on the side. Some of them, of course, are transitioning as part of maybe an early retirement, or maybe they're wanting something that just they can keep in their back pocket to give them a little bit of financial stability. Do you have any thoughts about this idea? New business owner who may still be working and how to sort of think about their finances, and especially how does that work with your intentional money method?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. We work with lots of clients who decide to make the transition from a corporate career to business ownership or may do some side consulting or coaching. So, this is something that's very common. The concept of retirement has really changed. People are living longer. They want to contribute to the world, especially when they've developed these amazing skills over the length of their career. So, we do see this more and more. Some of the challenges, though, that we see is the assumption that you have this amazing skill set, that it's going to automatically translate into being able to run a business and utilize those professional skills that you've developed, right? And so sometimes people don't necessarily think through what does the financial plan around the situation look like, right? And so it starts with really, what do you want? What matters to you? What's important to you, right? Like, if this is just a side business that you're doing for maybe a little extra income, or just, because it's something that you want to do, it's more of a hobby, great. But if you're running it as a business and you want to drive revenue and you want to drive profit, right? Then we want to be serious about looking at the numbers and thinking about the numbers and what does that actually mean. For a lot of folks, they're going to run into a lot of mindset issues that are going to come up because this may be new, right? If you're
Mm,
not a financial professional, right? If you're in some other area that you're now coaching or consulting in, there's a lot of stuff that may come up for you. That's a big part of the intentional money method, is looking at what experiences have we had with money, and how does that impact the way we think about money, the way we talk about money, the way we make financial decisions, right? A lot of times you hear people talking about kind of money scripts, if you will. But essentially, that's that internal dialogue that people have around money. And for most people, you're not even aware of it. You're
mm,
not even aware that these thoughts are happening, right? We're actually running a challenge right now. The whole focus of the 30-day challenge is bringing these thoughts to the surface, because once we build awareness around them, then we can start to create strategies that are going to deal with these things. Biggest biggest thing that I see, and it was true for me too, when people go out on their own, biggest issue I see is pricing.
mm.
Underpricing. To be clear, underpricing.
Yes,
And I
yes.
did it. I was there. I was right there with everybody else. I think as a new business owner, it's hard to understand where you sit in the marketplace if you don't do the research, the market research, to really know, right? And I think for a lot of us, it's hard to really figure out what how do we value our services? What does that actually look like, right? But this is absolutely critical to the financial planning piece. And so moving past whatever those stories are that we're telling ourselves that maybe we don't deserve to get paid. And especially with folks that are just starting out, Candy, I see so many people doing free sessions. Great. You need the experience. Don't get me wrong. Please do the
Mhm.
sessions.
Yeah. Yep.
But at some point, right, there has to be a boundary. It has to be a boundary that says, that I'm committing to creating wealth for myself. And that means pricing my services appropriately and making sure that I have profit, not just revenue, right? And those are the big things that we see coming up with coaches and consultants in particular.
Yeah, and so this, I mean, around pricing, so often because they may have been, on a salary, an annual salary, monthly salary, or an hourly rate, or they were in some position where they were charged out at an hourly rate to a client. It's really easy to forget that you have overhead. It's
Right.
really easy to forget that you've got to spend time networking, building your business, on marketing, and all these other things, that the amount that you're charging isn't the same as your paycheck.
Right.
Yeah, it's a number coming in, but there's a whole host of other costs and commitments and your time and energy that have gone into you becoming an authority in what you do, building that business. Maybe you speak, maybe you've got a podcast, who knows what all these other things are. So to really separate the hourly rate from the actual costs of running a business are huge.
Mhm.
When you see somebody worrying, thinking that they should charge less or they should charge more, and these money stories are coming up, how do you help them see a different perspective?
One of my very early coaches had me do the exercise where you write down every class you've ever taken, every person you've ever like, basically getting a very clear, tangible picture of all the wealth of experience, education, training, and all of that. That, for me personally, was such a valuable exercise to go through. It was like, boy, I should be charging out the but I will say I've encouraged other people to do a similar exercise because that was such a powerful experience for me. Um, the other thing we talk about is value creation, right? So
Mm.
it's very easy for people to, um, especially people who might not necessarily be really like financially savvy, to always think about in terms of dollars per minute or dollars per hour. That's just a very simple equation for people to wrap their minds around. But one of the things that we also really help people understand is the value that you're creating for somebody and what that's worth, right? And so that's kind of a different exercise that we're looking at, but we're looking at what are the transformations, what's happening, and how can we actually, put a monetary value on that. In some cases, that value creation may not take your time. It might not take that much of your time, but is so valuable to the person receiving it that they are absolutely willing to invest maybe significantly more than what you would charge on an hourly basis. So we also help clients understand that, there's different ways to skin the cat, there's different ways to price your services, there's different ways to value, there's different ways to create wealth, right? And really helping them to get in alignment. That's a big part of what we talk about is when you think about your values, when you think about what feels good, what feels in integrity, what does that pricing structure look like? And even I was talking with my team, we did a team retreat last fall where we were really looking at our corporate values and how does that actually play out into the positions that we hold? And where are the challenges? What's difficult? And I talked about integrity and how if you truly are committed to being in integrity, that's actually a very difficult thing because you're constantly making the decision that may not be the easy decision, right?
Right.
And I use the example of, I have so much knowledge and I want to share it. And I love coming on podcasts and sharing freely online. But when it comes to working one on one with somebody, to be in integrity with my clients that are paying me, it's important that I'm charging for that service, that I'm not just sitting down with people, kind of willy nilly. That's what we help people understand, right? What are your values and how does that actually play out in terms of the financial decisions that you're making.
Right. So you've gone through really three great approaches to help people come to this place about pricing. And also, I don't like that charge what you're worth thing because a human is infinitely worthwhile and worthy, but charging for the value that you're bringing. So you've talked about what is what have you learned to date? You know, what wisdom and skills and expertise have you accumulated to date and used that in your consideration? Then the second was about what kind of a value do you create? And a perfect example of that is a career coach. If you can help somebody get a new job at, even 10,000 more a year, what's the lifetime value of that alone? And then the third is making sure that you're aligned with your own values when you are then working with clients. And so those are three really big points. And I just wanted to summarize it because they're important, and it's really easy for somebody to listen to this show, but to not go, "Oh, well, wait a minute. I could just do that one approach for now, then I could just do the second approach, and then the third." And in that working through these obstacles that we might have, it could really make a massive difference. I wanna just come back to the intentional money method. And I know that you've got 6 pillars, like, that, are involved there. Can you go through the 6 pillars and a little bit about how you bring them forward with your clients? What are they? How you bring them forward? How they interact as well? That would be helpful.
Absolutely, yes. So, and I do have a book that's coming out very shortly about the intentional money method. So, as soon as that information is available, I will send that over to you. But the 6 pillars, it starts with clarity. And clarity isn't just about your numbers, it's about what matters to you, what you're working toward, what your goals are. So, really getting clear on whatever the financial purpose is, like that intent, right? The second one is values, which we've already started to talk a little bit about. I think that is a really missing piece for a lot of people because there's so much external input around financial decision making. And what do I mean by that? Social media, you're seeing your neighbor go on this trip and your cousin get this new car and, whomever, whatever. Um, that creates for a lot of people these desires that they may not have had intrinsically, right? It just becomes all of this external output that's impacting the way we think about what we want. And if we really get quiet and really get clear on what matters to us, actually financial decision making becomes really easy. Budgeting becomes a non issue. I mean, really, when we're really in alignment, it actually makes so much of it so much easier. So I like to really get clear with people around their values. The mindset is the piece that I find most often where people get stuck. I was just talking with somebody earlier today around investing and how so often people will tell me, I want to know more about investing. I want to learn more about investing. But for whatever reason, in their minds, they've created this obstacle of I'm not able to, I don't understand it. Like they've just created this hurdle. And so really opening up the conversation around these things is really, really important. That's part of what we do in the Empowered Sisterhood is really
Mhm.
dive into the mindsets that might be keeping us stuck so we're not moving forward, right? And I think a lot of that does come from just conversation, being able to talk these things through. I hear things that you might be thinking where I'm like, let's dive into that. Like why is that the assumption, right? I've
Right.
had several clients over the years tell me, "Well, Leah, I can't make any more money." Well, I don't know if that's true. So let's examine that, right?
Yeah.
So mindset is really critical. The last three are kind of more, I think, what you think about typical financial planning, and that's strategy, action, and support. But here's the thing: if you create the strategy, but you don't have the mindset that's actually going to allow you to take action, the strategy is pretty meaningless, right?
Mhm.
If you create the strategy and it's out of alignment with your values, you're not actually working to something that's meaningful to you. It's hard to stay motivated. I see this a lot with people who struggle with debt, where it's really hard to stay motivated if you're not really clear on why you want to be out of that situation, right? And then certainly the support piece is one where I think unfortunately there's so much information online, which is amazing. It's wonderful to have access to so much information. But there seems to be this messaging that then we have to be able to do it all ourselves, or we have to be able to figure it out all ourselves, right? I'll tell you what, I have been on this weight loss journey, Candy, for a long time. I had VSG surgery over a year ago. I've been working out with a personal trainer. I would not have got the results that I have gotten if I wasn't working with somebody. I know how to go to the gym. I've gotten nutrition education. I know how to eat, but that accountability, that knowing that somebody else is actually paying attention is so valuable in helping me to achieve those goals. It's the same thing with money. But the issue becomes so often people are so uncomfortable talking about money. They are raised in an environment where it's such a taboo topic, they don't even feel comfortable talking about it. Or maybe something has happened in the past where it's created conflict. All kinds of issues arise. And it's so important to be able to open up and have these conversations. So I think that support piece and really, truly having a really strong financial foundation is so important.
Mm, I love that. So, of your 6 pillars, 4 of them are quite soft skills in a way, right? You've got clarity, you've got values. I can't remember the third. I'm so sorry.
Mindset.
Mindset. And then you've got the 2 that you would normally equate with going to a financial planner, the strategy and the action, but then the support piece. So, like, 4 of them are unusual from my perspective. I have a great financial planner. He's a great guy and he's really great at educating me on what's going on and on us on our plan. But I don't think he's ever said, so what are your values? Like to help so that the decision making is easy, to help that staying with the strategy, staying with the action is easy. As a coach, we talk about values and mission and mindset all day long, right? So that's like inherent. So there's this really interesting piece where there's a lot of what I think of as coaching and personal growth and understanding and development coming together in the world of finance. And what a great combination. Do you have a quick story for us on somebody who has just transformed their life, transformed everything in their world because of the work that they've done with you?
I do. I actually share this story in the book, and I think it if you could have experienced it, like, I won't be able to convey it as much as what I've been able to see, but I'll share what I can. This woman comes to me, she lost her husband, and, he had been sick for a while. He had also always been the one who was responsible for the finances. And she sits down with me and she says, Leah, I feel like a $2 million bag lady because she had millions of dollars. However, she didn't even know how to access it. Like she didn't know how to actually like deal with money on a day-to-day basis. And not only that, but the fact that she was now responsible, she was just completely overwhelmed and terrified that she was going to make a huge mistake and outlive her money ultimately, right? He was the main breadwinner and he was gone. And she was in her 60s. This wasn't a time when she was going to start a new career or anything like that. And so we worked together and really for her, we got very clear that she wanted to be able to have quality time with her grandchildren. That was something that was really important to her. She was also very afraid to spend any money because, she was just so like, didn't understand that if like, the money would continue to kind of regenerate, if you will, so we could show her how to have her money make more money. Um, but as she started to learn and get comfortable spending money, she actually it was about 2 years after we started working together, took her grandkids on a trip to Italy. That
Oh,
was something she had always wanted to do. It was
mm.
such a special trip for her. She didn't feel guilty about it. She knew she had the money for it. I mean, the transformation from somebody who here is sitting here feeling like literally, I cannot spend a penny. I'm worried about going to the grocery store and spending too much. To be able to enjoy this trip just a couple years later with her grandchildren, making memories, something that was really meaningful in her life. It was so powerful to witness.
And to be able to really enjoy the trip. Like,
Right.
that is really the icing on the cake. Ah, I love it. And so for me, as I hear you describe all of this, I'm thinking of the number of women specifically, many who are coaches as well, who really don't have an understanding about their financial situation and have those mindset misconceptions because they don't understand, because we've got that negative cognitive bias that means we're always going to look for the problem and think things are coming to an end. What is possible for them. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is, if there is one person that listens to this episode and they start to think about something a little bit differently, that really to me makes the conversation worthwhile. I have so enjoyed speaking to you. Can you tell us a little bit first about the book that's coming out? And second, I know that you've got a free offer that you can help people with. So I'd love to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. So the book is Intentional Money. It'll be out next month, and I will be sure to include a link for Candy to share once we have that available. But it really does go more in depth through the intentional money method, gives stories of what we've seen clients experience, it gives stories from my own life of what I experienced, and really how powerful it is to look at all six pillars and really allow them to support your financial journey. And so it's a quick read too, so you can get through it quickly. But it's good. I'm really, really excited about that book and getting that into more people's hands. The free gift that I have for you today is actually just a very short version of that book. So it kind of goes through the intentional money method as a starter kit at a high level. So if you want to kind of learn more about, especially some of the things that maybe you might be less familiar with around getting your values aligned with your financial decision making or some of those mindset things, that starter kit is a great place to start.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'll make sure to put the links in the episode notes so that people can just go and sign up for that right away and get started. Can you tell us also a little bit more about how to get in touch with you, how to find out more about the your different organizations that you head up?
Absolutely. So I am most active on Instagram and on LinkedIn. On Instagram, my handle is Watch Her Thrive. We share so many free resources. I do a weekly live show at noon on Tuesdays called Intentional Money Moves. Um, I just encourage people to follow there because you will get so much information. We do so many free master classes and things like that. And then on LinkedIn, it's Leah Hadley. That's really the best places to connect with me.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you learned something and maybe you got a new perspective on how you relate to money. And I wholeheartedly recommend that you reach out to Leah, find out more about her, and start to thrive. It's a big deal and you deserve it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Candy.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to reflect on what stood out and how it connects to where you are right now. Coaching businesses grow through clarity and thoughtful choices, not pressure or hustle. If you'd like more support, you can learn more at stepintosuccessnow.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with a peer or colleague who would enjoy it as well. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.